I hope you're doing well. We're continuing our walk through the book of First Corinthians, chapter 13, talking about love. Last time we saw in chapter 13, verse 1, that Paul says, "If I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, do not have love, I become a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal." We talked about how, apart from love, our words are just annoying. They actually are annoying, and like a clanging gong or noisy cymbal, people don't hear us. There's no hearing because love is what what makes words palatable. It's what brings words into the heart. And this time we're going to talk about something that Paul again addresses, and that's the issue of knowledge. If you look at verse 2 of 1 Corinthians chapter 13, Paul says, "If I have the gift of prophecy, and I know all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing." This is an interesting verse. He actually sort of summarizes everything that we could possibly know in the spiritual realm, but then he also sort of expands it even into the secular realm. He says, if I have the gift of prophecy, so I can speak for God, if I know all mysteries, so every mystery that there is, I actually have knowledge of. I can actually say, I have rational awareness and knowledge of every single mystery that there is. I understand them all. There's no mystery to me. In other words, I have all data sets in the universe, and I have come to conclusions on all those things that are accurate. And then he says, and all knowledge, so that every single set of data, everything that could possibly be known, I know. And that's an amazing statement. Paul's speaking in hyperbole here, obviously. He says, even if I know all those things. And then he one-ups it beyond that, and he says, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains. In other words, he says, even if I know everything that there is, and I have so much faith that I can actually carry out events like that, I'm able to do those things. I can know the exact timing of God's work in the world in these kinds of ways because of the limitlessness of my faith. So what's Paul describing here? He's describing a person who has all the head knowledge in the world. They can speak for God. They understand every mystery. There's nothing that is not revealed to them in a sense. They have complete knowledge. Everything that can be known, they know. And they have 100% faith. So they have 100% access to all things that are true from God. He says all faith, all understanding. He says even if you have all of those things, and then remarkably he says, but if I don't have love, I'm nothing. So he says, if I have all, but without love, I'm a zero. So Paul says love is actually the thing that defines whether a person is an all or a nothing, right? You can be a true know-it-all, but really know it all and still be nothing if you don't have love. So what's Paul's point here? Paul's point, what he's trying to craft for us, is for us to look at and understand this issue. He wants us to see that love is the thing that makes all things meaningful. All knowledge, prophecy, all mysteries, faith, all of those things function rightly only with love. So if you strip love out of that equation, there's nothing left. And Paul says, if I have all that stuff and I don't have love, I'm nothing. I'm valueless. Now, what an important word this is for us, right? It's such an important word. When we can look into the world and we can see the quest for knowledge, the thirst for knowledge, right? We want to know everything. There's a push to know and understand everything. Even there are times when we even struggle to understand things that are mysteries to us as Christians. There are moments in the Bible where we come to conclusions that seem to be somewhat contradictory. Like, for example, the sovereignty of God and the responsibility of man. We bring these things to conclusions and we say, well, there's a mystery here. I don't understand it. Paul says, listen, even if you did know all of those mysteries, but if you didn't love, you're nothing. What's the conclusion of that? If you do have love, even if you don't necessarily understand all the mysteries, you are something, right? There's something to you. There is something that pleases and honors and blesses God. And that's exactly what Paul is calling for. He's calling for us to love, right? He wants us to love because love is what pleases God. Now, that does not mean that knowledge doesn't please God. But what it does mean is that knowledge, faith, understanding, mysteries, prophecy, all these things must be informed by love, because if they're not, they're empty. The other thing that's remarkable about that is there is one being in the universe that does have all of those things, right? There's nothing that's a mystery to God. God has 100% knowledge of all things, absolutely at all times, everywhere. What does that mean? It means that God is something. Why? Because God has all of that knowledge, all of that truth that we're always seeking to probe into and understand. We want to understand who God is. We want to have search the scriptures, understand his revelation of himself. But in all of that knowledge, God is what? God is love. God is love. And so as we seek to understand all the knowledge, all the mysteries of the Bible, as we seek to do robust theology as Christians, we need all of those things to be informed by this side, by love. All of these things are designed to move us to love for God. Remember what Paul said in 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 1? He said, this knowledge puffs up, but love edifies. And then he says, if any man thinks he knows, he does not know as he ought to know. But if any man loves God, he is known by him. What's he saying? He's saying at the end of the day, our knowledge must drive us to a love for God. That's his conclusion. And if we don't love God and we don't love others, we are not fulfilling the commandments. We are nothing. We are simply an empty shell puffed up by knowledge. We have not truly grown in the faith. And so what Paul would have us do is, yes, grow in knowledge. Yes, grow in understanding. Yes, grow in seeking to understand mysteries and all sorts of things. But at the end of the day, he wants us to love God and he wants us to love others. I hope that's helpful for you.